Hello and welcome to our Office of Special Education Leadership and Project Directors Conference presentation on addressing social skill deficits through innovative solutions. We're going to tell you about a project called VOISS, which was funded under the Stepping Up competition in just a moment. But before we get there, we do need to mention this disclaimer. And of course, we're aligning with that for this Leadership and Project Directors Conference. But let's get into the fun stuff. First of all, who are we? Well, my name is Sean Smith. I'm a faculty member here in the Department of Special Education, a colleague of Amber's and Maggie's, and I happen to be the PI on this project. And by the way, it was funded by the Stepping Up competition, if I haven't already mentioned it. Amber?
Yeah, my name is Amber Rowland. I'm an associate research professor at KU. On this project, I'm a co-PI.
My name is Maggie Mosher, and I'm a doctoral student at the University of Kansas, and I am a social skill content strategist for VOISS.
And like any project, there's always a problem. And Amber's going to talk to us a little bit about that problem we're trying to address.
Right. So VOISS was originally designed to support students who struggle with social skills. And that's because we find students who struggle with social skills also struggle to make friends. They may be in situations where they're being bullied. They may have low self-esteem. And it begins to hinder their access to general curriculum, much because in order to tell you what you know, you have to have some social skills and the ability to communicate. And so over time, students who struggle with social skills really start to struggle in school, and then they are less likely to go on to post-secondary education and even an inability to obtain a job or to maintain friendships later in life.
And so this is going to, this presentation, in terms of our response to that problem, is really a two-part component. There's something called VOISS, which, of course, you're looking at the acronym and you're saying, that's VOSS, Sean. No, it's Virtual Reality Opportunities to Implement Social Skills. We call it VOISS. And something called Voice Advisor. Now, VOISS itself is an app. It's something that was developed prior to this project, and it's focused in on, and has evidence behind it, on middle school students, particularly those with autism spectrum disorder, learning disabilities, or individuals that have identified social skill deficits. And Voice Advisor, which we'll talk about in just a moment, intended audience are the educators that surround those individuals, and they facilitate the support of the integration. Now, VOISS itself, as I mentioned, is an app, and so it sits on several different devices. It's on the Chrome, it's on the iPad, and also the Oculus. And for those unfamiliar with the Oculus, that's a head-mounted display for full virtual reality. And yes, this is a virtual reality experience, and so therefore a little less immersive on the iPad and the Chrome, and fully immersive on the Oculus, and of course available in all those areas. If you have any trouble getting to download the app, email us, and we of course gave you our email address at the beginning, and we'll do it at the end as well. Now, of course, key components to this is we're involving text, we're involving images, we're involving a variety of different other elements that are facilitating learning, and it's all surrounding 10 social skill domains, primarily 182 specific skills, a variety of scenarios, and as I mentioned a moment ago, we target middle school students. Maggie's going to tell us a little bit more about those domains, though, and the skills that follow.
So as Sean said, we had to determine first what are the domains that middle school students need for social skill development, and that was a complicated process to come up with the domains and the skills within those domains. We started by pulling 40 different practitioners. Those included speech and language pathologists, special education teachers, occupational therapists, anyone who did social skills at a state level to teach teachers how to teach social skills. We tried to get a variety of people that all work in social skill development. And based off of their information, we did a survey to see what they use for social skill training, for social skill assessments, and just what they use to teach social skills. From all that information, we determined 20 social skill assessments that were common among all of the practitioners. And from those 20 social skill assessments, we then took those 20 and looked at the framework developed by Travers and colleagues that really analyzed the handbook. It's a common handbook used called Skill Streaming Children and Youth with High Functioning Autism, a guide for teaching pro-social skills. We compared our list of skills to their list of skills. They had 5 domains and 81 skills. We determined from all of the assessments there were many more domains and even more skills. We then took all of those skills and domains we found from the assessments, and we included things like self-care and safety that maybe weren't included in the autism guide, or certain communication skills that weren't there. We took all of those skills and those domains and gave them to 3 experts in autism and social skill development, and they reviewed our list to see if we were missing anything. They identified 4 pairs of skills that were similar enough to be treated as the exact same skill, and 2 pairs of skills that were functionally the same skill but were in different domains. For example, something in expressive communication can also be found in relationship skills. Different domain, similar skill. So we took out the skills that were dissimilar and determined which domain it fits best in. And then from all of that and our experts, we had focus groups with teachers who added a few additional skills that we may not necessarily consider social skills because of our development and our work with middle school students, but they're extremely important to them. Those included things like cyberbullying, things that we may not have considered. We added those skills, and that's how we got to, as Sean said, the 182 specific skills in those domains. All of those skills include self-awareness and advocacy, self-regulation skills, critical thinking, problem solving, executive functioning, we have relationship skills, social comprehension, expressive communication, receptive communication. So here's a list of all of those, and it's kind of a complicated process. So the next slide I'm going to show you kind of breaks down what that looks like. Now we have all the skills, we know what the domains are. This next slide shows you an idea of each specific skill. So in relationship, you'll have, do you compliment others? Do you help others? Do you encourage others? Do you cooperate with others? Share, ask a favor? So we have all of these skills that fall in that domain. And then after we have all of those skills, we have to both teach those skills in multiple locations and at different levels. So complimenting others at a small kind of minimal level might just be saying, you look nice, or you thank you for this. Whereas complimenting others in a cafeteria might look completely different and might be at a different level. We also had to find times within the skills that fit to reinforce the skills they've already learned in the program. So this is kind of a breakdown of when a skill could be taught, measured, both times, and then when it could be reinforced. The next slide kind of gives you an idea in a different domain. This is expressive communication, what a scenario might look like for assessment purposes. So we might have starting a conversation, and the assessment piece might be wanting to open a conversation with a topic that's relevant to the person and kind of giving what could they add to that conversation? What could they say? Where would this take place? It could take place in a classroom, and we'd want to have peer avatars around. These are a breakdown of some other skills like listening without interrupting. We have both teachers and peers in that, and it's in a school library and a media center. So these skills will appear other places and other locations, but also with other people to help with that generalization and maintenance piece. We don't want to just teach the skill in one place and assume they'll transfer it to another place, or teach the skill in one location and assume they'll transfer it with other people. For example, peers versus teachers. We also had to teach the skill in different ways because the way in which you relate to a teacher in middle school is going to be very different than the way in which you converse with a student or a peer. So the next slide on there, I think, is kind of a standalone interaction solution, how we're using it for perspective taking and holding conversation, reading body language and facial expressions. You've got turn taking. Really, it's developed for middle school students in grades 5 through 9. And as Sean was saying, you can access it anywhere that's computer or mobile. It doesn't require a headset. You can use your iPad. You can use a tablet. Head-mounted display allows for that fully immersive situation, but there are multiple options on where you can access these. Next slide on there, I think you're on domain development.
Yes.
Great. So on the domain development, you'll see all of the different domains, which will be the slide that's before this one. And then you'll get into the domain and you'll see the specific scenarios. And you can click on a scenario. And when you click on the scenario, it'll take you to that location and you'll have the different avatars and it'll walk you through multiple different opportunities to practice the skill. What's nice about the program is it not only directly instructs that skill, but it gives you immediate feedback on how you did on that skill. So I can immediately get a natural consequence if I did the incorrect, and then it goes back to reteaching the skill. So every time I have an opportunity to show what I know, but I also have an opportunity to relearn what I didn't know and to try again.
So overall, folks, what we've developed for the learner are organized under those 10 social skill domains, a variety of scenarios. And each scenario, as Maggie has shared, and I know one of those slides is like, oh my gosh, it's really busy. But the skinny of it is we're trying to develop those skills, and the scenario walks the individual through a beginning, middle, and end, so to speak. Now, with that, of course, our expectation, we'll get to this, our expectation is students won't do all 10 domains in every single scenario that we've created. Instead, we have a screener that puts them in place for that, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Instead, what I want to focus in on is the fact that when I actually go in via the Chromebook, the iPad, or the Oculus, I don't necessarily see myself. Instead, I'm seeing what's surrounding me. Yes, I can look up, I can look down, I can look around, or I can move myself doing that depending upon the device I'm using. An iPad, Chromebook, I have arrows, and a head-mounted display. I literally just can move my head. But where I'm going with this is the fact that I'm looking at the interaction. So I'm looking at the students in front of me. I'm looking at the hallway, whatever it may be, and then I move through that. Now, I just don't move anywhere I'd like. Instead, the scenarios kind of place me in terms of the next steps. It engages me in interaction. Avatars will interact with me. Avatars follow a script we've created. They are not live. This is something we've created, and they run through it, through the various processes. And then as they navigate through, they move through, they're stopped in each scenario, potentially multiple times, with questions. They're stopped with the fact that, okay, now we want you to, based on what you just experienced, and remember, our focus is on social skill knowledge and development. They're stopped with, okay, we want to present you with what are your next steps? What would you decide? Now, of course, in this image, the opportunity would be for them to respond, and of course they can listen to it. That's what the speaker's for. They select one of the four. Now, in some other instances, it may be that we want a verbal response, so they click on the verbal response microphone and they offer a verbal response and things of that nature, or maybe they need to raise their hand. So there's a variety of tools supporting them. Now, of course, if they're correct, we want to reinforce why they're correct. If they're incorrect, we want to make sure they understand what they need to reconsider as they move on. And so that's all built into each scenario. But more important, so that overall, okay, a long-winded way in a way of sharing the fact that the VOISS app is for the student to develop knowledge and skills in those domains specific to those scenarios and all those skills. Now, of course, we don't expect them to immediately be able to practice and generalize into the real world. Sadly, a lot of literature reinforces that's challenging. Instead, Amber's going to tell us about what we call VOISS Advisor that tries to facilitate that entire process.
Yes, so VOISS Advisor was designed for teachers, related service providers, anybody who's working with students, paras, or even parents and family members. And the idea here is not only to help with the integration and implementation and use of VOISS in the virtual reality scenario, but more importantly, to help practice and generalize into, as Sean said, the real world. And so the way that we do that is designed to build, advisor, I should say, is designed to build educator capacity to help better understand social skill instruction. This isn't necessarily an area where a lot of general education teachers are used to having to teach specifically how to use and practice social skills in a classroom. Many times that's an assumed skill. And what we know is that it actually does need to be taught. And so not only are we helping with the content of understanding how to teach social skills and what they are, but also offering models and supports to help the teacher, help the student use it in the classroom. And so we're really designing these, VOISS Advisor is designed to support generalization of social skills into the classroom. So the components of VOISS Advisor, of course, there's an aspect that you can access VOISS itself and how to use VOISS, so you better understand the actual button pushing for both the teacher and the student. Then we have a social skills screener that Sean had mentioned that helps the teacher determine where to begin the student in VOISS, which of the scenarios should be focused on, etc. And then we have a progress monitoring dashboard, which we'll introduce to you in just a moment, and that really helps the teacher track the student progress over time through the system. We also have a library of strategies, tactics, and solutions that help the teacher be able to do this themselves with the student in the classroom. And we'll show you some examples of those here in just a second. But they include instructional videos, how-to implementation guides that can be printed off and or used as a reference electronically, and then videos of teachers actually doing it with students in the classroom. And then we have classroom stories, which we'll refer to as the heart of VOISS Advisor, because there are 10 classroom stories that are focused on students who have specific social skill needs, and they are focused on the 10 domains that Maggie had introduced to you. And then we also have a lesson plan builder, because within all those classroom stories, each of those case studies or classroom stories has 5 lesson plans that have been developed by the teacher who's helping that student generalize and practice in the classroom. And lesson plan builder helps the teacher be able to go into our system and type in whatever the student is struggling with, whether it's interrupting or they're being bullied or self-care questions, and it automatically pulls up all the lesson plans that have been developed, and we have 55 right now, all the lesson plans that may touch on that topic, and then the teacher can then open that lesson plan, review it, download it, and edit it to make it individualized for their own student. So I was describing the various components. We have a slide here that talks about the content learning, and that's direct instruction. If you go to VOISS Advisor, you'll find images, or I should say videos, of Sean giving an overview of each strategy, tactic, and support solution that we offer. And in addition to his overview video of that, I think this one's video modeling. It's really tiny for me. Yes, video modeling. We also have an implementation guide, which is step-by-step instructions, again, that the teacher can download and use when they go to actually do video modeling with a student. And then we also have videos of a teacher with students doing the strategy itself or tactic.
And Amber, on this one, what we wanted to do is we wanted to set the stage for the educators to understand some of these best practices. And so that, especially that illustration, and you mentioned I set the thing, all I do is set up the overview, for example, video modeling. But that video illustration, talk a little bit about that and what we're trying to do for the educator that's looking at Advisor.
Right, so this is that building capacity component that we talked about, because when we met with teachers and experts in this area of social skill development, many told us how social skills is not necessarily an area a lot of teachers feel comfortable teaching. And so what we have done is gone in and tried to summarize and give an example and overviews of what these things are, these strategies, whether it's video modeling, which is pretty simple, or we have tactics like contrived mediating stimulus, which some of us would go, I don't know what that is. And so we needed an opportunity to be able to learn what that was and then be able to implement it independently with those supports and also see it live in the classroom. So we've tried to kind of get at that capacity building aspect at 3 different ways just within that direct instruction component of VOISS Advisor.
Now at the heart of it though is in a way the classroom examples.
Yes, and so these classroom examples, again, were designed to help teachers really dig in and understand how it looks in the classroom. So contextualizing the use of these strategies and tactics in the classroom. So you'll actually go in and you'll hear a narrator over the top describing the strategy again, but also narrating what's happening between the students and the teachers. And then they actually practice whatever strategy or tactic that's being implemented. And then in addition to this direct instruction and the classroom examples or the modeling pieces, we also have the classroom stories, which we kind of call the heart of VOISS Advisor because it's very deep. You can go a long way with these. There's 10 different classroom stories. Each of those classroom stories have a very nice description of the student and the social skills that they're struggling with. But in addition, like I mentioned, we have those 5 lesson plans per classroom story, which show how to integrate and implement a specific skill with a child. And so within those lesson plans, again, they can be downloaded and used by the teacher through the lesson plan builder.
And each of the students affiliated with one of our 10 domains.
Yes.
Yeah. But it begins with, it begins with a screener in a way, in terms of the entry point is with the social skills screener to get teachers understand where to begin the students within VOISS. And actually Maggie's going to try to explain that a little bit better for us.
Yeah, one of the really nice things about the screener is it does help to make it individualized for your student. So it really hones in on what exactly are the skills that your student needs priority-wise. So the screener prioritizes things for high priority, low priority, no priority at all. And then it also hones in on what are the skills that they already have and what are the next skills that they're going to need. And it orders skills for you. So maybe the skill that they really need is going to be working on specific conversation or not interrupting. But in order to get to that not interrupting skill, we have to work on the pre-skills. We have to work on being able to understand body language and motions. So it really helps the person who's filling out the screener to hone in on what are the main things that we need to be looking at. So in the screener, it goes through the 10 domains, and in each domain, the person filling out the screener determines if they have enough information to really answer that question about it, if they see the student demonstrating this and how frequently they see the student demonstrating this. And then one of my favorites is whether they know it and can tell you about it, but they just don't do it. So based off of the answers that are given, it helps them determine, and you'll see the yellow, red, orange, and green. The green is, it's a high skill, and it's a skill they need in order to get the skills that are the most important for them to learn. So the green would come up right up to the front of the list saying, this is where your student needs to start on this skill. The yellow would be, this isn't as important right now for me, but I need that skill to get somewhere else. Or the red, this isn't important at all. The skill is not priority for this specific student, so we're not going to start there. Why that's really nice is when you have 182 skills, that's a lot for a student to do, and you may only have that student for 10 minutes a day sometimes, or 5 minutes a day, or you may need to stick them on it after school for a period of time. So it allows for very quick honing in on, okay, this is the skill we're going to work on in this specific area, because that's the priority, and then it'll continue on based off of that priority.
So accompanying the social skills screener, so the social skills screener is to get the educator to help the student to get started within VOISS. So within Advisor, of course, we also want to be able to have the educator have access to tracking the student and understand how the student is moving through what was assigned based on the social skills screener, what they're getting correct, where they're potentially a bit challenged, and challenge might be they're taking a little bit more time. It might be the fact that they're having to respond multiple times because they're having an incorrect response initially. It also gives a sense in terms of overall, basically the movement of the individual through the domains, the scenarios, and of course those specific skills. It provides this information in a variety of different charts so that the user can see this, the educator primarily can see this in a variety of different ways to better understand potentially what the student needs to go back to, whether or not the student's ready for some of these solutions that Amber's already talked about to facilitate practice and generalization, and overall basically understand how the student is using VOISS and what next steps are. This is basically every click, every movement, every touch of the screen the student is doing within VOISS, the app. Educators have access to via VOISS Advisor and this particularly this progress monitoring tool. Amber, we talked a little bit about the lesson plan builder earlier. We have a screenshot of it, but why don't you go a little bit deeper in terms of what's available there besides, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Sure. So on this example, we say search for interrupting because it's a good one. What it brings up is any of the lesson plans that have been developed within VOISS Advisor that address that particular concern that a student might have. It also includes within those lesson plans all the instructional strategies, generalization tactics, the actual instructional setting, so one-to-one, small group, large group, and then also any of the support strategies that are being used. So within each lesson plan, those 4 things are selected. And it's helpful because that gives the teacher all the bits and pieces, the ingredients that we think and our experts think are critical when trying to develop a lesson plan to support generalization of a social skill tactic or a social skill in the classroom after learning it in VOISS. So we know when they come to VOISS, they don't know the social skill, or they really struggle with it, or they're not doing it. Even if they do know it, there may be a different reason for why they're using that particular skill in VOISS and doing that scenario. But then when they come over and try to actually do it in the classroom, then we try to make sure that the teacher has all the strategies, tactics, et cetera, that they need to support the actual use in the classroom. And I guess if we have a little bit of time here, we might have time to actually go in and look at VOISS Advisor, the website. In addition, Sean mentioned this earlier, but we also have a presence on social media, so you can join us at our Facebook page as well as our Twitter handle. And then we have voiceadvisor.org, which is the place that you can go to get all of this great stuff that we've just introduced to you. And we can give you a little tour of that here. I think we have a few minutes to do so.
So we do. So we are in VOISS Advisor right now. And so this is our entry page. So as a user gets into the entry page, the user, of course, being the educator, they have a variety of different ways to navigate and move through it. Now I'm going to use our little hamburger button up here. And primarily, as Amber mentioned, there's a VOISS introduction, which walks you through everything from how to access VOISS and learning more about it to starting with the screener, that would initiate the student's use of it, and of course information on the progress monitoring and how to use the progress monitoring with the VOISS app. And each of these links goes into much deeper, including visuals, step-by-step elements, videos, and of course direct entry into each of these objects, linking out to where to download the app, linking to the screener, linking to the progress monitoring tool. Amber, I'm going to switch over to the classroom stories, the solutions. And in the solutions, we've subgrouped those into 3 different areas. Could you mention a brief bit about the instructional strategies, the generalization tactics, as well as the support and generalizations settings? So just why did we sub-organize those?
Sure. And I did a little bit of this introduction because we consider these 4, or we and our experts in teaching social skills said that in order to develop a decent lesson plan, you really got to have these 4 things identified in the plan. And so the first one is instructional strategies. And so that one is one-to-one, small group, and I said instructional settings, right? That's one-to-one, small group, and large group. But also the instructional strategies, we've got video modeling, social narratives, etc. And if you go into video modeling, then you'll see all those pieces that I was describing to you. That's that overview of what video modeling is, and then the modeling video itself, which walks you through and lets you see it in a classroom actually being used. And then back to the zigzags, the solutions as we call them, under generalization tactics. Again, this is the next components. So we have the instructional strategies, but then we also need some sort of generalization tactic. And so that might be, in this case, embedded opportunities. Again, there's that overview of what it is and how it works, and the video showing it actually being used in the classroom. And then finally, the support strategies, which again are tied to the tactics. So is the teacher using prompting, visual supports, etc., in order to help the student implement and generalize in the classroom.
And then, of course, as we're running out of time here, we know the classroom stories, as we mentioned in our presentation, have entryways into the 10 different areas, each identified with an individual, aligned with a domain, and rich in terms of the tools within that, because, of course, it walks the user through not only the story of the individual, but gives the parent perspectives, offers the teacher perspectives, and, of course, this is offered in a variety of different ways: text, video, and of course offers contextualization of what this means within the variety of settings, and of course connected with then solutions within the lesson plans. But there's more, of course, to access, to learn. I want to bring us back to our presentation, because in our presentation we have, as Amber mentioned, a variety of different resources that we're sharing out via social media. And of course, we want to put you back to our email addresses, because as you know, in the Stepping Up, we are in different phases. And so if you're like, well, Sean, we're trying to get access to this, this isn't as available as we'd like right now, email us and we'll tell you what's available, what's not, what's still in development, what we're doing in terms of research, as well as if you're interested in participating in research. We're examining not only the VOISS, of course, but the VOISS Advisor in a variety of different pilot studies, as well as, of course, our overall efforts in implementation. So can't thank you enough for joining us. We know we would love to be live in DC. Love to go out and to eat next after this presentation, but we are limited in this way. But please, 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 there are email addresses. Reach out to us, and I want to give my colleagues a chance to say goodbye as well.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here, and we so look forward to people getting into VOISS and VOISS Advisor and understanding just how robust the system is.
Yes, thank you, and I'm excited to see how all your students grow by using it.
Great. We hope to hear from you reaching out to us, and have a great rest of the OSEP conference, and of course, great rest of the summer. Thank you.